Coming up on Network Africa, Cote d'Ivoire begins Ebola vaccinations after first confirmed case in 25 years. Thousands of people flee ethnic clashes in Cameroon's northern region. Plus, Moroccan firemen battle large forest wildfires in the northern province of Chef Chaoune. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin in Cote d'Ivoire, where the country has begun a vaccination program against Ebola after the country confirmed its first case since 1994. Officials say the family of the infected teenager and health workers involved were the first to be given the jab. The Health Ministry says they plan to have vaccinated by Wednesday all the 2,000 people that they consider exposed from the community and also people from the health system and security. The infected teenager tested positive on Saturday after arriving in the commercial hub Abidjan on a bus from neighboring Guinea. Well, joining us now for more on this is a journalist in Cote d'Ivoire, Liane de Bassompierre. Thank you, Liane, for speaking to us on the program. Now, what's the government's rollout plan for the 2,000 people that they consider exposed to this virus?
Thank you very much, Lau, for having me on the show today. While the government of Ivory Coast, as well as the international and local health partners, acted quite swiftly once the 18-year-old woman was confirmed to have had Ebola on Saturday, 5 experts from neighboring Guinea, where Guinea, of course, was the epicenter of the epidemic in 2014 and 2016, where more than 11,000 people died in West Africa at the time. This time, Guinea is seen as experts in this field. So 5 experts from Guinea arrived in Ivory Coast on Sunday. They immediately started giving health workers who were going to be administering the vaccine. They started giving them training immediately. Government then yesterday at the same hospital where the patient tested positive, they started with the vaccine campaign yesterday. It was a bit of a late start. They had planned to do it at around 3, and it was only about 2.5 hours later that it actually started. The actual campaign started. So there was a bit of disorganization in the beginning, but on the whole, the government and the health service
it appears. Well, Liane, you were speaking about, the government's rollout plan for the health workers and even others that they consider to have been exposed to this virus. Now, this is an additional strain on the health sector, isn't it, with the nation still battling the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, Ivory Coast has been one of the countries, especially on the continent, that has not been as badly hit as Nigeria, for example. Up to date, since March last year, there have only been 63 deaths, and at the moment there are 664 official cases at the moment. So, of course, it is an additional strain, but also an additional stress, I think, for the health services and for the government at this time to be in the middle of the pandemic and the economic suffering that the country has received after that, and then to be going into the Ebola outbreak as well. So it is a strain on many different fronts.
Now, how are citizens reacting to this latest development? I mean, it is the first case detected in the country in the last 25 years.
People seemed very scared when I was at the hospital yesterday. They seemed, on the face of it, that people were more scared of Ebola. I guess that it's been around for a lot longer. They saw firsthand the devastation in their neighboring countries in 2014 to 2016. So in many ways, people are more prepared for, or I think what they've seen of Ebola and what they've heard of Ebola is closer to home than what COVID has been. So I think that people want to get vaccinated very quickly. Ivory Coast has had their vaccination campaign for several months against COVID. It's been going so-so. There's been some hesitancy, but they've gone through a very, very proactive communication campaign around that vaccination program. And of course, that as soon as they get all the contact cases for the Ebola case vaccinated, that they would roll out to others as well.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Leanne Dobasumbe in Abidjan. Well, in the meantime, Cote d'Ivoire has confirmed the discovery of avian influenza cases in the southeast of the country. The cases were detected in a traditional poultry farm in Munduku, a locality in the Grand Bassam area. Local authorities say they had already taken measures to counter the spread of the highly infectious avian influenza strain AH5N1 virus. It said the area where the cases were detected had been declared a protected zone, and more results of a surveillance on the outbreak was to be expected in 21 days. The authorities have also enforced other sanitary measures by closing markets and other places where poultry is sold, as well as prohibiting the processing, transportation, distribution, and sale of poultry products. More than 10,000 people have fled northern Cameroon after clashes between fishermen and herders from two neighboring communities. The clashes have led to the death of around 20 people, and those fleeing from the region are seeking assistance in neighboring Chad. Clashes broke out in the Longon-Brinin area on the banks of Longon River along the border between Chad and Cameroon. Now, the army had to be deployed to the area, and authorities say it is the worst ethnic clash incident in recent days. According to a provincial governor, the refugees have camped in schools in Chad. The Far North's governor has also visited victims of the clash, presenting relief items to them. The governor also met with the two leaders of the conflicting ethnic groups during a reconciliation meeting. Peter Koum is a Cameroonian journalist covering conflict zone in Cameroon, Chad, and Central African Republic. He's based in Garoua, the northern region of Cameroon. He joins us now via phone for more. Thank you for speaking to us. To give us an update on this situation, what more can you tell us about the ethnic clashes? I mean, it's been quite a precarious situation in the northern region.
Concerning the ethnic clashes in the northern part of Cameroon, I prefer to say the far north region of Cameroon, which shares borders with Nigeria and the Republic of Chad. It happened on the Tuesday, the 10th of August, precisely at El Bike, a locality situated at the Logon Bini Council in the Logon and Shari division around the Lake Chad. The Muslim ethnic group clashed with the Arab Shua ethnic group for a piece of land. The ethnic clashes led to 15 deaths and 38 persons were wounded, according to the governor of the Far North region, Mr. Bakari Mejihawa. But according to local media in Cameroon, at least 26 persons lost their lives in this conflict. On Saturday, that is on the 14th of August, the two ethnic groups clashed again and at least 5 other people were killed. These conflicts led about 10,000 villagers of the Logon Beni Council to flee and take refuge in the neighboring Nigeria, precisely at Unduma, a locality situated around the Cameroonian border. According to Chajan media, these 10,000 Cameroonian refugees who started arriving in Chad last 20 days are living at very difficult conditions. They lack food, and water, and they spend their nights in the open air, among others. Chadian authorities said they have started registering them and are calling on humanitarian NGOs to urgently intervene.
Well, now, is there a plan by the government to, help these thousands of people that are fleeing the northern region? This is causing a new refugee crisis.
As for the moment, there's no plan by the Cameroonian government to help these people fleeing from Cameroon to neighboring Nigeria. What the government did is that the governor of the Far North region, that is Mr. Bakari Mijawa, was sent to the conflict zone on Sunday, 15th of August. While at Logobeni, the governor tried to reconcile the conflicting partners. He visited the wounded victims and gave them assistance, and visited and gave assistance. While at Logobeni, the governor of the Far North region tried to reconcile the conflicting partners. He visited the wounded victims and gave assistance to people who had lost their family members at the conflict.
All right, then, Peter Kum, there, a Cameroonian journalist joining us. Thank you for speaking to us. In South Africa, soldiers are to spend another month on the streets across the country after the widespread unrest and looting that followed former President Jacob Zuma's jailing in July. In response to the violence, 25,000 troops were deployed, the biggest number since the end of white minority rule in 1994. President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced that their numbers will now be scaled down, with 10,000 troops remaining on the streets until mid-September. This month-long extension will cost $17 million, the president wrote in a letter to the head of the National Council of Provinces. Mr. Ramaphosa also said the South African National Defence Force will work with police across the country in the prevention and combating of crime and preservation of law and order. Firefighters in northern Morocco are battling to put out 2 forest blazes as the North African kingdom swelters in a heat wave. According to weather forecasts, several parts of the North African kingdom have seen temperatures of up to 49 degrees Celsius. Neighboring Tunisia and Algeria have been experiencing forest fires in the past week amid a heat wave sweeping across North African countries. The Algerian authorities, however, on Monday said the wildfires that had been raging in the country for the past week were now under control. A Kenyan-Swedish car manufacturer is converting traditional noisy carbon dioxide-emitting safari vehicles into relatively silent 100% solar-power transporters. Embu River Camp, a luxurious eco-lodge in the Masai Mara, in one of the beneficiaries of these innovations, and have procured 3 electric safari vans, which they use on game drives, the first in the carbon-laden wildlife tour business.
In Kenya's Masai Mara National Reserve, a driver, Sylvester Mukeye, driving a Toyota 4x4 Land Cruiser of tour guide, glides silently past a herd of grazing elephants, then past a pride of lions lying in the grass. The animals are completely unperturbed by the proximity of the vehicle because it's diesel engine and has been replaced by an electric one that eliminates the rumbling noise and, just as importantly, reduces the emission of diesel fumes.
If you drive here silently, you will of course get much closer to animals, especially the elephants that we are in now, because there's no vibrations on the ground and there's no the fume that will get a smell from like other cars. So with this, you can get all those things. They are not disturbed in any way.
Here we have a vehicle that has been stripped.
His vehicle was converted by Opibus, a Nairobi-based Kenya-Swedish company founded in 2017. It is, for now, the only company in Kenya that converts diesel and petrol-driven safari off-road vehicles into electric ones.
What we envision by 2030 is to have all matatus on the road to be electric, as well as utility vehicles. And what we have at the moment also are motorbikes, which are designed, frame and everything here in-house, and we aim to have more boda riders using electric vehicles.
Kamal says her company uses 35% locally made materials and aims eventually to use only local materials.
At Embo River, we want to have a positive impact on nature and our community. We don't want to impose ourselves. Instead, we feel like we're part of nature. Like the rooms, the whole space, it blends in with the forest. It's located along the river, so it's very low touch. Also, when you're doing the game drives, it feels like you're just floating through the grasslands. We like to say that Embo River safari vehicles are running on sunshine because it's all solar powered.
Embo River Camp runs solely on solar power. Valerie Super, the camp's co-founder, says that with all their eco operations in place, the company saves around $150,000 a year on operational costs.
Still ahead on the program. Uganda to host 2,000 Afghan refugees at the request of the US. Please stay with us for more details. Welcome back to the program. Uganda says it will take in 2,000 Afghan refugees fleeing the crisis in their country. Refugee Minister Esther Anyaku told the BBC that President Yoweri Museveni has agreed to take in the refugees at the request of the Americans. This follows the weekend's lightning Taliban takeover and the collapse of the federal authorities in Afghanistan. The first group of around 500 Afghans are expected to land at the Entebbe International Airport, and their arrivals will be tested for COVID and also enter quarantine. All logistics and costs are to be handled by the US government. Now, when they land, Uganda will be the first African country to take in people fleeing the current crisis in Afghanistan. Uganda has a long history of hosting refugees and is currently home to more than 1 million people who have fled conflict or other disasters. Now, with the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan, there are fears that other insurgency groups may become bold and confident in their acts of terror, especially here on the continent. On Monday, Nigeria's President Buhari said that with the United States pullout from Afghanistan and the subsequent takeover of power by the Taliban, Africa has automatically become the new front line of terror and global militancy. A lot of groups are affiliated to the Taliban, and security analysts fear that the reverberations of this would be felt beyond Africa. In light of this, there are questions as to what lessons, if any, Nigeria can learn from the Taliban takeover, and this broadens the headline of security in the country and also the West Sahel region. Well, security analyst Chidi Nwonu joins us now for more discussions on this. Thank you, Chidi, for speaking to us. Let me begin by asking, should Nigeria reconsider its strategy in fighting insurgent groups? It appears we're having some technical difficulties. Mr. Chidi, if you can hear me, I was asking, should Nigeria reconsider...
It's very distorted.
Yes. Can you hear me now? We would have to move on to other stories. Now, refugees all over the world continue to try to make a living for themselves after fleeing their country for various reasons. For a Syrian family in Libya, a long-time hobby has become a lifeline for their struggle in surviving the economic impact of COVID-19.
For the 2-year-old Fida and her family fled Syria to Tripoli 8 years ago. They left everything behind. Her husband Hani was the main winner, fighting for Fida and their 2 daughters, Ghazal and Mary. He worked various manual jobs to make ends meet, but when the COVID-19 pandemic struck, Hani found it hard to find work, and his health started deteriorating. FIDA had to step in, turning her long-time hobby of knitting into a business that she hopes can grow to provide even more financial security for her family.
Back in Syria, it wasn't for survival, it was a hobby. I lived in a house we owned and we had a comfortable life. Now I make dresses for girls, baby blankets, socks, hats, hair clips, anything really to get some income.
After 10 years of crisis, life is harder than ever for displaced Syrians. Millions have been forced to flee their homes since 2011, seeking safety as refugees in Lebanon, Turkey, Jordan, Libya, and beyond, or are displaced within Syria.
When she started to work, she filled the financial gap. If we needed a plate for the house, she would sell a dress, and instead of one plate, she would buy 3. She sells everything else and buys a pot.
With the devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and increasing poverty, every day feels like an emergency for many refugees forced to flee.
Thanks for staying with us on Network Africa. Former heads of states, governors and other dignitaries here in Nigeria are seizing the opportunity of the 80th birthday of General Ibrahim Babangida to commend him for his leadership in the country. Speaking at the first lecture in an annual series, they were unanimous in celebrating the former military president for his patriotism and zeal for Nigeria.
The first annual IBB Leadership Lecture and presentation launch of a book entitled Paragraphy of a General in commemoration of his 80th birthday holds in Mina, the Niger state capital. The Niger state governor, Abubakar Bello, represented by his deputy, Ahmed Ketzel, says the general has been a father and grandfather to the state and the entire nation.
Today we are witnessing the birthday of an icon, our dear father. We want to thank each and every one of you for those that have made all their remarks here. I have nothing to say much because all the good things that he has done, even those ones that I didn't remember, is on record. And just like the chairman of this occasion said, that youth stands to emulate him.
The governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, represented by his deputy, Mr. Dan ONOJA, says despite General Babangida's age and retirement from active service, the country still enjoys crucial roles he plays in nation building.
The message to the celebrant, General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, from His Excellency Alhaji Yahaya Adoza Bello, the Executive Governor of Kogi State. I am pleased to join Your Excellency's family, friends, and multitude of well-wishers to celebrate you today. I salute the young soldier who stepped up in his early youth to defend his nation in the army, who did so with all his might every time he was called upon, and who stood attentive and unwavering at the duty post until retirement came calling.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the occasion and former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, in his congratulatory message, explains that the former military president has from his youth till now exhibited leadership qualities.
It is a no mean feat to attain the age of 80 years. On behalf of all of you, I say congratulations to the IBB. We join him in thanking God for being kind to him. He has given him good life, continued good health, despite one or two challenges here and there. And he has been kind to him. From that open who grew up motherless, and to some extent fatherless, God has given him all that each and every one of us will wish for himself.
And the former governor of the state, Dr. Babangida ALIYU, commends the celebrant, saying that he contributed immensely to the transformation, growth, and development of MENA and Nigeria.
Whatever a leader does, people remember him more for how they felt during his period. You may build all the skyscrapers, you may construct all the roads, but people remember you more for how they felt. And Nigerians felt good. All the other issues that maybe 1% of those who criticize were all efforts to situate Nigeria properly.
As he celebrates his 80th birthday, General Ibrahim Babangida has been commended over his leadership qualities when he served as military president and his leadership role as an elder statesman.
And that's it on the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.